Something strange happens when you stop needing or caring about your job. The fear or the stress disappears and you start seeing the system in a very different way. Hello to the 5 people watching, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alan and today we're going to talk about jobs and what happens when they don't have any power over you anymore. Let's get into it. Most businesses these days rely on several things, but specifically they rely on fear. They rely on you being afraid of losing your income. They rely on you being afraid of authority. They relied on you being afraid of consequences in general. When all of those things disappear, well, the power dynamic flips. And it's something very, very interesting to witness. And because I chose this specific topic, I think it's only fair that I start sharing from my own working experience. So, example number 1. I was working as a first-line manager for a business in the UK. I was newly assigned to a department. This department was a very feared department. Man, this is so windy. I need to stop. So this department was, well, nobody wanted to work there. It was poorly organized, as you would expect with a workplace where there was a toxic culture. It was a high turnover of staff, of operatives. It was a high turnover even of members of management. This department was basically bigger than all of the other departments in that place put together. It had so many people in it. It had so many people in it that you needed like 3 members of management to properly manage it. You would have a first-line manager person, like I was myself. You would need an assistant, not yet a manager, but aspiring to get to that position, and like a mid-level manager, like the person above me. So all these 3 people had to be there in order to make this department work, in order to actually finish all the work that was expected in a shift on a daily basis. And I remember that the manager that was directly above me went on a holiday, and there was a new guy that was promoted from first level management to a mid-level. And that person was transferred on my shift, temporary obviously, to cover for that my regular manager who went on holiday. Not only that, my assistant who was supposed to assist me to take some of the workload, to help with some of the workload, was new, so he needed training as well. And just to give you an example how bad this department was, there was, I remember, a first-line manager. She got promoted to the manager position, and the senior manager, I'm not sure if they were joking or they actually, one of them informed her, "You're going to be assigned to that department." She actually started crying. That's how bad that department was. Anyway, so this guy comes over from the other shift and basically tells me that he's not gonna sit there with me. He's gonna sit in the office because he's busy on doing who knows what, and I'm supposed to manage this department on my own. Not only on my own, but I also have to basically train this assistant. So I'm supposed to manage everything and train my new assistant. As you can imagine, that did not go down very well. And that was for the first time when I said, you know what, this is BS. So I told the guy, listen, that's not gonna happen. It's unreasonable for you to ask me to do that. But he said, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. But no, I wasn't. After I got ignored, when I said, listen, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this, it's not a reasonable demand for you to ask me to manage that department and train my new assistant at the same time. I was in a position at this time where I was making some money from my investments, and I was like, you know what, I don't need this BS. So I quit. I made my resignation letter and I sent it not to this guy, not to the person directly above me, but to the person above him. At this point, I didn't care anymore. I thought, I don't need this. I'll just find another job. And what happened was, next day when I came to work, I was immediately called in the back office, obviously, to discuss why am I leaving and so on. A senior manager was also present there, and I explained to them what I'm asked to do is basically unreasonable, and I had to make a list of what I have to do and how long it will take. Obviously, most of the time, senior managers have no idea what happens on the shop floor, and this guy was very surprised that I had to do all these things and also train a new assistant. So what happened is they agreed that this was too much and we had to simplify things. And this guy that was newly promoted had to basically come back from the office and sit there with me like it was supposed to happen. And they convinced me, basically, the senior management, listen, we'll make changes, don't leave, so on. And I said, okay, fine. There's the second moment. So at this point, the guy who was replacing my normal manager asked me why I sent my resignation over his head to the manager above him, why I didn't send my resignation to him. And I told him, listen, I went to you about this problem, said you didn't care. That's why. He didn't like that. Just to give you more context, just before my regular manager went on holiday, I applied for a holiday myself. It was a 2 weeks holiday. That was an issue. They didn't say it, but it was like, oh, you want 2 weeks holiday, you don't want 1 week. You know, they were like, you could tell they didn't like it. You could tell that they would prefer if I only go on holiday for a week rather than 2 weeks. So my holiday application was pending. I didn't get an answer back, and my regular manager already went on holiday. So I was also stressing them more, you know, I was also asking for updates on this pending application, and I said, I need an answer. I need to make my plans and, you know, book tickets. I wanted to go somewhere. By the way, this is another one of those red flags. You want to book a holiday and they start well, you could tell that they really don't want to give you that holiday because it's too long. That's another red flag. At a place like that, it's toxic. It's a good idea to pay attention to those flags. I didn't for a while. It took me a while. So because I was following up and wanted an update, this guy that was transferred on my shift temporarily came to me and said, listen, you can't have a 2 week holiday. At this point, there was it was like a project. They wanted to change a few things, how the operation would work, and they wanted to implement that. And they said they can't do it. 2 weeks is too much. I can have only 1 week. Well, it was very interesting that my normal manager, my boss, was able to have the days that he wanted, which was, I think it was more than 2 weeks, but it was minimum. I think it was at least 2 weeks, but I was not. So basically, these things that I'm talking about, the first time when I quit and this with the holiday, were happening in quick succession. I think they were like, I don't even know if they're like a week apart from one another. So when they said no, I said, you know what? I quit. Again, I don't need this BS. I quit. I said, whatever. I'm just gonna leave. And it's amazing. It's amazing how fast that thing got signed. They literally signed it the same day. I remember I got my application back the same day, and it was no longer a problem to have 2 weeks holiday. Not only that, but they had to postpone these changes they wanted to implement. They had to postpone them for 2 weeks because I was on holiday. The official story was that they needed to do some more work before they actually implemented, but I'm telling you, because I know for sure, it was because I went 2 weeks on holiday They had to wait another 2 weeks, when I come back, to actually implement the stuff. Fast forward another week or so, my regular manager comes back. By this time, something happens on a different shift, and there's an investigation that needs to happen. One of the operatives need investigating, but the manager on the other shift did not finish the investigation, and he passed it over to the shift that was coming after him, which was my shift. Well, let me just say that at that point I wasn't aware that you're not supposed to pass on investigation to a different manager, to a different shift. If something happens during your shift, when you're responsible, you're the person that's supposed to do the investigation and finish it and so on. I'm saying this because at that time I wasn't aware. No one informed him of that. I was also new to that role in that particular department. Anyway, that investigation gets passed on to me. This person who's supposed to be investigated goes on holiday or something. I go to my manager. By this time he was back, and I said, listen, I got past this investigation by the colleague on the other shift. I don't know what to do with it. This guy's not here now. I'm not sure when he's coming back. What should I do with it? I didn't get an explanation on what to do. I had no idea what to do. Also, he didn't seem to have an idea what to do. He said, well, we have to wait until he comes back to get the detail that you need for you to actually fulfill that and make the investigation. Well, what happens is, about 2 weeks later, when they realized, the health and safety manager realized that, listen, there was supposed to be an investigation done on this operative, and I don't know where it is, and I don't know what happened. I end up being investigated myself, taken to disciplinary basically, even though I already asked my manager, how am I supposed to do this if this guy is not here? And have like, I'm not sure how it was called. I think it was called, you have to improve this part of your management. This shouldn't have happened, and so on. Basically what you expect to happen in disciplinary meetings. So this was done by a manager. So it was done by the boss of the guy who passed me the investigation. So anyway, obviously I need to sign the paperwork of my investigation and my disciplinary, and at the end of that meeting I refuse. I say, this I'm not gonna sign, this is BS, and I walked out. I went to my manager and I told him, listen, I quit. This is nonsense. I don't need this. I already asked you about it, what to do with this. You didn't advise me, and now this happens to me because of that. So that was the third time I quit. These were very close to one another. It was so close to one another that a senior manager came down to see me, to see what's happening. Why am I quit like so many times? The answer is easy. I didn't care anymore. I wasn't afraid of losing my job. I wasn't afraid of, hey, they're gonna fire me or whatever. I just didn't care. Once you reach that level, it's a very, very liberating feeling. You become calmer. You stop pretending and call out things for what they are. You have a good look around you, and you see that most people basically are trapped by that fear that we talked about at the beginning of the video. And you realize how artificial corporate culture really is. I mean, there's a reason why they call it corporate BS, right? Because they don't really don't care about people. That's why. I think it's important I offer a disclaimer if you want to do something like that. I think it was a bit easier for myself to do that because this place was not particularly a very large business. I could replace basically several managers throughout the business in several departments, so I wasn't that easy to replace. Something to keep in mind if you want to do something like that, because they can outright fire you. But I highly recommend, once in your professional life you have to experience something like that. It's very liberating. It feels amazing when you do it, when you stop caring and you see basically that there's nothing they can do to basically scare you. Because when your job stops controlling you, you realize something important. The system only works because people think they have no other alternative. It's sad, but that's the truth. Now, There's many stories about this place. I don't want to talk anymore because probably we'll be sitting here all day listening to me yapping. And this was not about me complaining about the place. It's more about basically realizing what happens psychologically when the job has no more power over you. Like I said, great feeling. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you found this interesting, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.